Welcome back to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Last time we entered and beat the Forest Temple, and this time we're going to be doing a bunch of side stuff, but first, a lot of plot. Usually after beating a temple, we enter this chamber of sages, and we see a familiar face. All of the sages are people that we have met before, or we will meet them before we learn that they're sages, except for the case of Rauru. But yes, if it wasn't obvious enough, Saria is the sage of the forest. Now, that symbol underneath, the sages that we meet is usually representative of their dungeon. But as you can see, Saria's symbol is those four sort of waves spinning. They remind me of fan blades, and that makes sense because originally the forest temple wasn't meant to be forest at all. It was supposed to be like a wind temple. And that kind of makes sense considering something that will happen later on. In the 3D version, that symbol was changed. It has like 3 of those fan blades instead of 4. I don't know why they changed it. I don't remember where I heard this. I think it might have been in like another commentary. I think it was actually Hellfire Commentary's commentary of Ocarina of Time 3D. But one of the commentators on there said that originally it looked like a swastika to some people, which really, I don't think that was the actual reason, and if it was, that's a pretty dumb reason, but whatever. Now we're gonna see another familiar face, although a fresher one, I suppose. We're at the site of where the Great Deku Tree died, and now there's this little sprout coming out of the ground. Turns out that because of the evil in the forest temple, this sprout couldn't grow, and this sprout ends up being the sprout of the Great Deku Tree, so now a second one will come up and take his place, I suppose. And he has a leaf in his mouth, like, I don't know, I think like a Pokemon does that. Trico, maybe? Isn't that kind of like cannibalism? Whatever, okay. Now we're getting to major twist plot stuff. The Deku Tree is reiterating something that we already know, that the Kokiri are children that never grow up. Originally, I thought that it was because they were in the forest that they didn't grow up. Like, again, that it was like Neverland, and that as long as you stay in the forest, you stay a child. I mean, Link kind of does remind people of Peter Pan. He has a fairy and he wears green. Either way, Link did grow up, and that is not because he left the forest, as I convinced myself when I was little. It's because he actually isn't a Kokiri, he's a Hylian. Before there was this great war, and a Hylian woman and her baby boy went to the forest, and the lady decided to leave her baby in the care of the Great Deku Tree. Perhaps, I don't know, she died and became a Stalfos or something. I mean, we kill Stalfos. Actually, we killed Stalfos in the last part, and apparently people who get lost in the forest become Stalfos, so maybe we killed some actual people. That's pretty dark. Sadly, because Link was, a Hylian living in this Kokiri forest, he got to grow up. Although he got older in a forest where nobody liked him, because he didn't have a fairy and thus wasn't a true man, even though Kokiri don't grow up to be men. And also, these Kokiri might be like really old, but they still look like children. I don't know, I'm just rambling on. We need to leave and do some side stuff, so let's not waste any more time talking to this guy. And oh look, now there's a spotlight as you walk away from him. The monsters that were in the Kokiri forest, the Deku Babas and the Deku Scrubs, or Mad Scrubs actually, they're no longer around. Now it's filled with the Kokiri again. There's nice music that isn't interrupted by the battle theme, and all the signs got bigger to fit with Link's new adult body. Right now I'm going to do something that isn't really a side quest at all. It's just some dialogue that I really like, and it's from Mido, of all people. We need to head back to where he was blocking us, which is in the Lost Woods at the secret tunnel to Zora's River. Also, that room with the guy who we got the mushroom from that we had to show Kohiro to him, he's not there anymore, and there's a Skull Kid there. So if you go into that room, the Skull Kid will actually try to attack you because they try to kill adults for some reason. And this dialogue from Mido is pretty touching to me. He says that Saria had given Link a message to say that she'd been waiting for him and that she really liked him. Or at least, that's what Mido is trying to say, but he guess can't get the words out because maybe he likes Saria or something. And he also says that he's sorry for being mean to Link. And, you know, I find that pretty adorable, I guess would be the word. I like it a lot, okay? Now that we've gotten all the sappy stuff out of the way, we are going to use the warp song finally to actually warp somewhere. We are heading to Lake Hylia, which is where the Serenade of Water takes you. Usually it takes you to wherever you learned the song, but we learned the song in the Ice Cavern. And also the symbol for the water temple is ice. Well, it's like a snowflake. Again, beta stuff. Originally, Ocarina of Time was going to have an ice dungeon instead of a water dungeon, but then they decided to do water and like put all the ice assets into the ice cavern. As can be seen here, the entrance, or the secret tunnel from Zora's domain to Lake Hylia has been frozen over, so we can't really get there very easily anymore. Well, I suppose we can go through the Lost Woods. Well look, only one of the scarecrows is here, and we need to play him our song, but since it was only left and right notes, I'm not sure if it started with the left or the right, so yeah, it only takes 2 tries anyway, so I'll just do the second one. After playing all the notes for him, he will actually talk about his friend Pierre, who went to go and wander the world. If you play the Scarecrow's song at certain points, well, Navi will fly to a point and turn green. That's the point that you want to play it, if you so, desire to have help from Pierre. He will appear at that point, and since he's a scarecrow and made of wood, he will appear for you as a slingshot, or not slingshot, hookshot target. So, we couldn't get to the fishing pole before, but now we can because he's there. Usually you'd have to wait until the water level rose back up. Spoilers, the water level does come back up. Once again, we must play the fishing minigame. And hey look, he got a spiffy new hat. According to him, we're the only customer he's had in this 7 years. How is he staying open? Did he sell his hair online? Is that whatever. Anyway, we need to go fishing again because, I don't know, I want to get the prize for fishing. Yes, I understand all that super fast text. Now, his hat is actually very special because we can try to reel in his hat and take it off of his head, thus showing something that a lot of men probably don't want to be seen by other people. You need to get it just right. It's not too difficult though. It's more of a trial and error thing, and there we go. We got his hat. Now, what you could do is you can talk to him and say that you'll give him his hat back, but we're not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to try and get the hat lost in the water because I decided to go with the red morality instead of the blue. It takes a little while for it to get off your fishing pole, and until it does, you can't fish, which wastes time, but it's still a fun thing to do, alright? It's fun to forcibly make people bald. And if you lose it in the water, well, the text won't scroll until you press the A button. But if you lose that hat, he will not be happy. He will take 50 rupees from you. And you can't talk to him while this text is on screen, so you can't quit and leave before he takes the rupees. I decided to oh so subtly cut to when I actually get the fish because, well, there's a few reasons. One, say you're trying to get the fish to come toward you by wiggling the stick and pressing the B and A button and stuff. If you're in the water, you're ankle deep in the water, and then the fish gets close to you, it's going to run away and it's going to go to the center of the pond. And it's also going to hang low in the center of the pond. And we don't have a lure that can catch something that low, so it's not going to be, catchable at that point. So you need to leave and then re-enter and then pay another 20 rupees or so. The other thing that I did that was bad was that I got a different fish. I caught a 12-pound fish. I think with every fish you catch, the next fish grows slightly bigger. So I think usually this fish would be like, I don't know, 16 to 18 pounds. But when I catch it, it's going to say that it's 20. That might not be true, but usually I get a fish that's like at least 16 pounds, and that counts enough for the prize. And this fish is not cooperating, but I'm not going to edit past this because everyone needs to see me struggle to catch a fish. And it's just like real life, You press the B button to cast out your lure, and then press A and R to reel it in really fast. And then as you get, this is actually talking about the game now. As you get closer, or at least as the fish gets closer to you, when the camera zooms out, you want to start forcibly pulling the fish toward land, which basically means turning your entire body so that the fish can only flop around behind you, well, at least behind where you originally casted your lure. It's not difficult, it's time consuming, and that kind of sucks because then it's hard to come up with commentary, and then I'm not going to say anything more on the subject. We got the big fish. It's 20 pounds. We're going to give it to the guy, and he's going to give us something nice. It's actually not that nice. It's only used to get one other heart piece, I believe. Although, I guess it could be useful for young Link. After you weigh the fish, you get a prize. You get the golden scale, which he probably took off of a Zora that is, I don't know, frozen and dead underwater. I don't know where he got it, but with this golden scale we can dive even deeper under the water. Before, we can only dive for like 6 breaths, I guess. I don't know what those counts actually measure, but we can only dive for 6 units. I'll just call them units. With the silver scale, and with no scale we can only dive for 3. With this one, we can dive for 8, which is pretty useful for this one heart piece, but that's all I can really think of. The silver scale can pretty much do everything else for you, and the iron boots too, because they let you actually sink to the bottom. If you don't go super far and you talk to the scientist, he'll say something like, "Oh, you only went 4 meters deep. That's not deep enough. Learn how to dive better." Yeah, 4 meters. Interesting that they use that in the NTSC version. Although I guess Canada got this version too, so they'd use meters. Whatever. If you dive all the way to the bottom, a chime will go off, and the guy will be so baffled by your diving skills, even though I'm wearing the tunic that allows me to breathe underwater. But that is a lot of water pressure. I'm pretty sure I've gone down to the bottom of a 10-foot pool head first, and it was pretty rough on my head. But we get a piece of heart for it. We're gonna go back inside because there's some more stuff underneath there. Some money, which I need because I spent so much on the fishing minigame. And there's a shark. A very poorly rendered shark. And this box here. Obviously, you roll into boxes in order to get what's inside of them. Because we can't use our sword underwater, we can only use the hook shot. It's suffice enough because it can damage enemies, and we get another gold Skulltula. With that done though, that's all we really need from this place, at least for now. We're gonna be coming back here later. But first we gotta, edit warp out of here and into the Gerudo Valley. Yes, now that we're here, there is a bridge that was constructed before, but there were Gerudos guarding it. Now we can get across by jumping across with Epona. Or you could alternatively use the hook shot, although I don't actually think it could reach at this point. So you can't really use the hook shot. Just forget what I said. This guy, he's a carpenter. And if we give him the poacher's saw, he'll give us the next item that we need in the side quest. It's actually a pretty small and useless looking saw. I don't imagine why he would want it. But he does say that his previous Bigoron tool broke, so he'll take our saw and give us a broken sword. Such a great deal. Anyway, we're gonna be leaving this place because I don't want to see his face anymore. He said I have good wood, and I was uncomfortable with that. We actually have the means to continue in this area. In fact, we had the means to do that earlier. We could use the hookshot to get through. I'm pretty sure I've done it with just a hookshot before, and it was pretty damn difficult. But we're not going to do it yet because it's not as convenient in my opinion. So we're just going to jump back across and, you know, edit warp to a different area. Next, we're going to be going to Lon Lon Ranch, because there's actually a new side quest that opens up there after you've taken Epona and I think told Talon that you've basically ruined Ingo. But now he's all nice, he's back in his Fire Luigi suit, and he has a little bit of redness on his face. I think he's drunk off milk. There actually is alcoholic milk in these games, but we're not going to be dealing with that milk until the next game, which probably won't come for a long time. As for Malin, she finally remembers us, and she says she does because Epona remembers us. That is not a good memory. It's only been like 7 years, although for us it's only been like a day. Now that the ranch is all happy though, we can perform a sort of race against time. It's, I guess, an obstacle course that we can do with Epona. It's pretty much going around the ranch again, but instead of racing someone, we'll be hopping over fences and trying to beat a specific time. We need to hop over all of these fences and make 2 laps around this ranch in under 50 seconds. And it takes about 25 seconds to do 1 lap. I mean, yeah, about 1 lap. It cuts it pretty close when you're doing this. What I like to do is I like to conserve my carrots because the short fences, Epona doesn't need to have a carrot used in order to jump over those. She can just jump them at normal speed. As you can see here, I'm not using a carrot and she jumps it. And if you use one of the gates, Epona actually keeps her speed for longer. So say you use a carrot and then jump over a gate and then you don't use another carrot, the time that elapsed while you were jumping over the gate doesn't count as time that Epona was moving fast during. So it's like basically extended time for you. And I missed it by a second. Oh wait, no I didn't. I got it in the first try, guys. I'm cool. Anyway, the prize that we get, she says that we can't really see it right now and she can't really give it to us right now. It's a cow. We are having our own cow and it's going to be sent to Link's house in the Kokiri forest. It's only there when you're an adult though, and it's not really easily accessible, although it does mean unlimited milk. If you game over in this game or you like save and quit, you'll be warped to a certain point. When you're a child, you'll be warped back to the Kokiri forest. You'll be back at your house, which, you know, it's actually a pretty useful thing at the beginning of the game. If you're an adult, you'll be warped back to the Temple of Time. If you're in a dungeon, you'll be warped to the beginning of that dungeon. So, you know, there's no easy way for this Link to access his own house, but there is for young Link, but young Link doesn't have a cow. There's a second shooting gallery, one for while you're an adult, and the patterns that the rupees are in are the same. Like, for example, those 2 blue rupees were basically in the same spots as where they were when you were young Link, but the appearance of those is randomized. So before, it would start off with a green rupee, then a blue rupee from the left, then a blue rupee from the right, and then another green rupee, and so on and so forth. In this version, they appear randomly, albeit in the same sort of positions that they were before. Luckily for me, this was the first take, second try. I didn't have to, you know, use any, you know, save states or restore points or anything like that. I got it pretty easily, even though I consider it very difficult in the 64 version. 3DS version, it's not so bad because of the awesomeness that is gyroscope controls. But now that we've done that, we get the next quiver upgrade, or the first quiver upgrade, rather. Now we can carry 40 arrows. There's another one later on that we're not going to be getting for quite some time. Instead, we're going to be heading up Death Mountain Trail because we have the broken, like, Goron tool, so we need to take it to the Goron that made it. There is a large Goron in Goron City. I think he's still there even after, like, the time skip and before you save all the Gorons. So you could talk to him, and he will actually sell you a huge sword called, like, the Giant's Knife for, I think it's 200 rupees? But the more you use it, and if you, like, clang it on something, like a wall, it will break after, like, 3 swings to that wall. So either be really careful with it, or don't buy it at all, because there's a better way to get a better sword. I think it actually does more damage than the Master Sword, the Giant's Knife. But it's pretty useless, so we're not going to get it. Instead, we're going straight for the better one. And that involves heading up to the top of the mountain. Of course, the Skulltulas are here, but there's a new added enemy around. There's the Tektite. And of course, since we have the Master Sword, and we can do double damage from when we were a child, we could take them down in one hit. Now we must slowly climb this wall. The rocks that fall down as we're walking toward this area, they're not, like, in the same patterns as before. When you were a child, you basically could just turtle up and block a bunch, and then the rocks would stop, and then you could keep going and then block again. Although I kind of just rolled through the whole thing. In this version, where the blocks appear is a lot more random. You can't really stand still and block them because they appear all around you. And you also can't really block them because you can't hold your shield all the way up. Or at least you can't have it facing all the way up. This Bigoron here, he said that his eyes are irritated from an eruption, even though there hasn't been one probably. And he gives us the prescription for some eye drops because his eyes are irritated. Or irritated, as he says, because he just likes to roll his R's, maybe? Or he just uses R's really long, like snakes depicted in media and stuff. Anyway, we need to take the prescription to King Zora because, well, at least this time the Big Goron says, hey, take this to King Zora, they have the eye drops. But he says that he doesn't have them. Instead, he has the ingredients, which is an eyeball frog. That is not ingredients, that is a single ingredient. But either way, this is another timed one. You need to take the eyeball frog back to the forest laboratory, the place where we got that piece of heart for diving all the way down. And once you take it over there, the scientist will be able to make some eye drops. The fastest way to get there, I find, is to go along Zora's River. The current won't carry you at the beginning because we're kind of too tall, but eventually it will, and you can just ride Epona to him. Of course, you need to talk to him first, but once you show him the eyeball frog, he'll get all excited. And instead of thinking that they're used for the eye drops, he'll think that they're for eating. Sorry guy, not to disappoint, but we actually need these for something. I just want to say something real fast. I kind of apologize for cutting out the timed parts. I mean, it makes the video go by faster, meaning we could get a lot more done in a shorter amount of time. But those things are timed. It's kind of a challenge, and I'm kind of editing around a challenge in the game, so I don't know. It's an odd debate that I had with myself internally. But either way, right now we just got the world's finest eye drops for the Bigoron. Of course, I'm going to warp because, I don't know. But this is actually the hardest one to do. You need to ride Epona to Kakariko and then go up to Death Mountain. Luckily, they do give you an extra minute, but you can cut it pretty close when it comes to this one. Like, usually you might have like more than 30 seconds. In this one you could probably have less. There is a way that I saw in the 3D version that you can kind of cheat this, I suppose. basically, you don't have the Goron tunic on, and then you warp to Death Mountain Crater, which is, you know, obviously a hot area. If you don't have the Goron tunic on, then Navi will obviously say, oh, it's too hot in here, we need to get out within the time limit, and then the timer appears. Thing is, the timer for the heat overrides the timer for the eye drops. Whenever you warp, usually it'll say something like, oh no, the eye drop's spoiled or something like that. You need to go back and get more. But since the clock for the heat overrided it, it's not going to say anything. Instead, it'll be like, get out of here fast. And then once you leave, then it'll say you warped. Too bad, go back and get more. But it usually gives you like 1 second on the clock. So you can actually run up to the big Goron really fast and give the eye drops to him before the timer runs out in that 1 second. So it's a pretty, I don't know, precise kind of thing to do. I haven't done it, but you know, if you can pull it off, it's a way to do it faster. I had like 33 seconds on the clock. I honestly think that that's cutting it pretty close. Anyway, now that we've given them to him, we hear a very odd sound effect of him putting the eye drops in, and now his eyes are all better, and we can, you know, fix up that blade of ours, or his. He made it, we're just kind of taking it. He gives us a claim check. This is basically a receipt saying, you know, that we're gonna get the sword later on. We need to wait until the moon crashes, by which I mean 3 days, until we can get that check. But luckily for you guys, I am so good at editing that I make it look like it's only 2 days. And, you know, now that it's the morning of the 3rd, we can finally give the claim check and take our awesome new sword. This new unbreakable Bigoron sword is actually kind of a double-edged blade. Not in terms of the actual blade, but whatever. I'll get more into it next part.